From Hennepin, Representative Omar.
Thank you, Speaker. Would Representative Sarwas yield for a question?
He will yield. Representative Omar.
Representative Sarwas, I wanted to know how many of our city attorneys came to you and said the laws that they had were insufficient in charging protesters.
Representative Sarwas.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, Representative Omar, I've heard from literally hundreds of Minnesotans throughout the last few years while I've been working on this. Hundreds and hundreds that have said, yes, the freeways are for vehicles. The access to the airport is important to my business, to my livelihood, and to the ability to make my flights. And God help us if an ambulance needs to get to a hospital when my child or my loved one is in the back and protesters have blocked the freeway. Hundreds of Minnesotans have contacted me, urging me to do anything that we can do to try to dissuade people from flowing onto the freeways and plugging up their ability to just live their lives. Now, in the course of all that constituent service and contacting Minnesotans from across the state, I did not solicit occupational information from each one of them, and so I wouldn't specifically be able to tell you how many prosecutors reached out in all of those contacts.
Representative Omar.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Representative Sarwas, for not answering that question. Would you yield for another?
He will yield. Representative Omar.
I wonder, when the bill came to be heard in committee, how many of our cities showed up to testify about the burden of cost for these protesters?
Representative Sarwas.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Omar, members, I had several cities contact me. I had several police agencies contact me. And oddly enough, Representative Omar, all of them said, please, fight the good fight. Keep up the good work, but understand, in this political climate, we just can't be out in front on this one. And I understand that. I understand that. I watched the press conference when Betsy Hodges, the former mayor of Minneapolis, was booed off stage when she was trying to introduce the new police chief. I get the climate that some individuals are up against. And so I understand that there's less ability for some city officials to take a front seat on this issue. I, however, am fine with taking a front seat on this issue. I am fine with defending the fact that the freeway is for cars and the airports need to be open for people to get to and from their flights, and that the billion-dollar train ought to run. I'm fine with that.
Representative Omar.
Thank you again, Speaker, and thank you, Representative Sarwas, for not answering that question. The truth is, not one single city official, not one single attorney came to testify in committee when these bills were heard. Not one single city official, not one single law enforcement, not one single city attorneys have sent letters in support of this legislation. And former Mayor Hodges did not get booed off stage for introducing the new chief. So that isn't correct. And I just want to say that this spate of anti-protest bills isn't a coincidence. What you and Representative Smith are trying to do is the opposite of what we want representatives to be doing. We want representatives to be encouraging freedom of speech. We want them to ask and advocate for their constituents to show up, raise their voices, and to awaken us from our complacency. What you are doing is stifling the freedom of speech. What you are doing is instilling fear in people so that they go away. I hope everyone that supports this bill understands that what you are supporting is a bill that is going to make our citizens afraid to come out and show their dissent. This country is built on people rebelling, people showing dissent, and people urging their government to do the right thing. That's why we encourage protest. That's why I encourage all of you to support Representative Pinto's amendment to get this poison bill out of the public safety omnibus bill so that those of us who might want to support it have the option to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask, once again, a clarifying question. There is nothing preventing a member from showing up to a deposition, is that correct?
That is correct.
So at any point, if we choose to show up to a deposition, we may. It's fully within our rights to do so.
That is correct.
So I think I agree in the spirit of personal responsibility and our responsibilities to here as members that we can show up to our jobs, and I don't believe we have to be forced or compelled to do so. And I also believe that 5 days, again, we are a responsive body, and I want us to communicate to the American public that we are a responsive body, that we are an efficient and effective body, and that I don't believe we need 5 days. You know, many members, I understand that many members are from different parts of the country, but very frequently we are put on 24-hour notices to show up for votes. And I believe that we can continue to be that effective and efficient body without requiring a long lead time. I know that my Republican colleagues do not like the bureaucracy and the clogging up of government going on and preventing the American public from having their services done as quickly as possible. So I just wanted to express that. Thank you.
If the gentlewoman would yield.
Gentlelady, would you
Sure.
yield?
Yes.
I thank the gentlewoman for yielding. Mr. Chairman, I can tell you on all of this at this particular point, we're all wanting to cooperate. Sometimes our schedules, you know, we're not just sitting around eating bonbons waiting for the call of anybody. It's truly, you know, there are complex scheduling, and that's why we all have schedulers to get this done. And I yield back. I thank the gentlewoman for
Thank
yielding.
you.
Pardon? Yes.
Yes, time.
For a point and then a question.
Is no longer the best vehicle for working class Americans. Well, I think the numbers that you just talked about is part of the problem, right? Because we look at these figures and we say, oh, unemployment is low, everything is fine, right? Well, unemployment is low because everyone has 2 jobs. Unemployment is low because people are working 60, 70, 80 hours a week and can barely feed their kids. And so I do think that right now, when we have this no holds barred, Wild West hyper-capitalism, what that means is profit at any cost. Capitalism has not always existed in the world, and it will not always exist in the world.
A couple of other items on your policy agenda that you made very clear throughout: Medicare for all, federal jobs guarantee, and tuition-free public universities and trade schools.
Yes.
Those look to a lot of people like promises of gifts under the tree, but they wonder how they'll be paid for. Now you're in a position to carry these out. How, at a time when the CBO says our debts and deficits are exploding and are going to cripple us, how do you...
Oh, you're yielding now? All right, Mr. Lee.
I think it's really important for my colleagues to understand that we're talking about transparency and talking about oversight. These are messages that impact the American people, that right now, all I hear is this fear from the other side of information that might come about Ivanka, and we got to protect it. You know, that's all I hear is that you're choosing to protect family members of this current administration that have access to information. They are at the table making decisions on behalf of the American people.
Reclaiming.
They don't have any privacy anymore. They also have to be accountable to us in this chamber. And Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member, I understand that you want to talk about the specific processes and we want to go back and forth about Hillary Clinton and
I'm going to reclaim. But
understand that you
are
protecting someone that is at the table now.
This subpoena is for personal emails, who their domestic help is, who's watching their. That's ridiculous. That is completely off the table, Mr. Chairman.
Would you please just one last point, Ranking Member, please, just 30 seconds.